Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the debrief session for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix 2021, which took place earlier today, and it was a really exciting race. So this was a very enjoyable one, I have to say. Where to start? Well, I guess we need to firstly have a look at the results. Obviously, Max Verstappen was the winner of the race, which is great for the championship. He's now 1 point behind Lewis Hamilton. I'll go through my notes that I have from the race in a second. But firstly, let's have a very quick look at the championship standings and see where we are right now. So, following that race, as you can see, Max Verstappen obviously was the winner there. And as I said, let's have a look at the championship standings after round two. So not a huge change. Obviously, Hamilton is still winning the championship as expected. However, his lead has been substantially cut down, and so really now he's only 1 point ahead of Verstappen, and that is because he got the fastest lap in today's race. Apart from that, they would be absolutely even. I think it was Bottas actually who had the fastest lap from the last race, so neither of those two received the fastest lap. And as you can see, fastest lap could actually turn out to be a critical aspect here in deciding the championship, especially if it's going to be this tight. So now let's get things very clear. This is only the second race of the season. It feels like the first because it was 3 weeks from the last one, but this is only the second race of the season. We're supposed to have a 23 race season. I don't know if we're having 23 races or not. Obviously, a lot of this is dependent on COVID-19 and what can actually be achieved. We've heard already this week that it looks like Canada is going to be cancelled, although they are talking about putting in place a replacement race. And if you look at Formula E, they're kind of going with it every step of the way by adding in the double header races, and we're hearing now that the Valencia Prix that takes place next weekend will also be a double header. But coming back to the Formula One anyway, so in the Formula One, as I said, Max Verstappen won a very eventful race today. He was pretty consistent throughout the entire race. But yeah, looking back at the championship standings, that puts him now 1 point behind Hamilton in second place in the championship. And then, of course, we have Lando Norris in third place in the championship. He had a very strong race today, and we'll get onto that. Charles Leclerc, some consistent results from him for the first two rounds, puts him in fourth place. Bottas somehow is in fifth place in the championship. Really not good enough, though. But this is a common trend with me. I'm always talking about how it's not good enough from Bottas. He's technically got the fastest or the second fastest car or something like that. So by default, his absolute worst position here should be fourth place. But no, somehow he's just outside of that top four. Anyway, moving on. Sergio Perez is only in eighth. Daniel Ricciardo getting shown up a little bit by his teammate at this point in time, but I wouldn't panic about that just yet. Norris obviously has all of the background with this car. So coming back to the race that we had earlier on today, as you can see, yes, and as I've mentioned several million times already in this video, Max Verstappen was the winner there. And just the nature of this is that we'll have a kind of a recap on how the race went. And I'm just having a look at my notes. So it was very eventful from the very get-go. We even had Charles Leclerc spinning off on the formation lap, which was really unexpected, I guess. But once again, the Ferrari looks like a handful to drive. Not so much this year, only 2 races in, but we've seen that other years, and we see it with the Haas. And I don't know if it's something to do with the way that the power is delivered or the torque or something like that comes from that Ferrari engine. But tricky cars, any of the Ferrari powered cars. And it's been a common trend going back. I would even say if you go back to the 2019 season, where Vettel was at 1 point actually competing for the championship, he had some major spins and some major losses during that season, where he just seemed to lose the back of the car. And if you go a little further back as well, there are plenty of instances of Kimi Räikkönen also doing the same thing. But there you go. We had then a great battle, Verstappen versus Hamilton on turn 2. I love the start because it was a Mercedes sandwich. Hamilton went down to the first corner and second corner, well, first corner mostly, with both of the Red Bulls on either side, Perez and Verstappen. And I didn't know how this was going to end up. Verstappen had a fantastic start. Of course, he was starting in third place, whereas Perez was starting in second place. And then when it came to turn 2, a little bit of drama because it kind of looked like Verstappen didn't leave enough room for Hamilton. Realistically, Verstappen took the racing line. Was he entitled to do that? Yeah, it's every man for himself in the first lap. So not too much you could do about that. But still, it was a battle. It was reviewed, I was about to say by the VAR, it was reviewed by the FIA. They had to look at that, but decided that there was no further action required, which I think was the right call. For Hamilton, of course, it meant that he had to jump the curb, and it looked like quite a painful process. And he broke a little part of the end plate as well on the front wing in doing so. So that definitely was not ideal for him. And then Verstappen took off, and he maintained about a 5-second lead for quite some time. We had a safety car then. So Latifi had a major crash into the wall. So Latifi actually went off track and tried coming back on. And of course, the conditions weren't great. You know, we had rain and everything else. But he tried coming back on in such a way where he just didn't notice that Mazepin was there. And, you know, when I saw the replay initially, I smiled a little bit, said, oh gosh, okay, Mazepin probably is responsible for that. But in fairness, it wasn't Mazepin that was responsible. It was completely Latifi's fault. He did not see Mazepin there, made contact with him, and took a really almost like a right angle turn into the wall and took some of the hoarding with him in doing so. And it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. Anyway, that brought out the safety car. And the interesting thing about the safety car was we had two major incidents, I would say. Firstly, Perez went off the track a little bit, came back on and overtook two cars. He basically lost 2 spaces in going off the track. And so he came back and he overtook those 2 cars, and he was later penalized for doing so. So he had a 10-second penalty because of that. So not good from Perez. And Schumacher was trying to warm up his tires and ended up putting the nose of the car into the wall just after the pit exit. So he had a long way to go around again to get back to the pits. And the irony being, because he had left some debris at the pit exit, the pits were closed. So he had to go around one more time again. Not the way to do things. But yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Okay. Carlos Sainz had several offs in the Ferrari. He had 2 major offs that I could see. Now, he didn't take any damage that we're aware of from these offs, but he just went through the gravel. He lost control of the car twice in close succession, I would say, within 4 or 5 laps of each other. He did get some great speed later on in the race, though. So, you know, he potentially could have finished in 4th place ahead of his teammate if it wasn't for all his off-track excursions that he had during that race. So maybe a missed opportunity for him. But once again, as I said, you know, this Ferrari seems supremely difficult to deal with, in particular in these more challenging or tricky conditions. So finishing 4th and 5th for both Leclerc and Sainz was a good result for them, a very solid result for Ferrari, who seem to be battling with McLaren this season. Moving on from there, Norris came up behind Ricciardo at some stage. So Ricciardo, by default, actually qualified ahead of Norris because Norris's time was deleted. His flying lap that would have actually seen him take 3rd place in qualifying yesterday. Norris came up behind Ricciardo. He was on a totally different strategy, of course, and there was the team call from McLaren asking Ricciardo to let Norris through. No response that we heard actually on the team radio from Ricciardo, but he did allow Norris through. And as you can see in the results, Ricciardo ended up coming sixth. Norris came third, almost had second there for a little while. So it was the right decision to make. It was the right decision to make from the team, and I don't think Ricciardo can really complain about that one. Perez had his 10-second penalty applied during his pit stop. Bottas, where do I start with Bottas? Bottas was in 10th place after 10 laps, and in fact he was in 9th place then after 20 laps. He got a radio call as well from Toto Wolff, giving him the hurry up. So clearly this was not the optimal result for Valtteri Bottas. And we will get onto Bottas in a second, because obviously there was one main incident that involved him as well. So after 20 laps, we had Verstappen, who was 5 seconds ahead of Hamilton, who in turn was 17 seconds ahead of Leclerc. Leclerc then was 8 seconds ahead of Perez. Now these are rounded up times. It was probably 7.775 or something like that. And then Perez was a further 13 seconds ahead of Norris. So you can see Norris was in 5th place at this point in time. Vettel pitted on lap 22, and he put on the medium tires. And this was interesting. So everybody was watching this just to see how this was going to go, because he was the first car onto the slick tires. Didn't seem to work for a while. Vettel also got a 10-second stop-go penalty because his car was not ready, or he did not have the tires on his car ahead of the race. They had the 5-minute rule, and so he didn't meet that. Vettel on the radio as well admitted that he felt it was slightly too early for slick tires, although the tires did start to kick in. And then on lap 27, Verstappen pitted for the slick tires. He went out on the medium tires. Hamilton decided to stay out, and this is where all the drama really starts to begin. So Hamilton then pits on lap 28. He has a 4-second stop, so there was a little bit of an issue with the pit stop, and he was held in the box as well, because I think it was an Alfa Romeo was coming into the pits at the time, and that resulted in him being held a little longer than he would like. And so when he did emerge back from his pit stop, unfortunately, he was once again behind Verstappen. I think the gap was anywhere between 4 to 5 seconds that he was behind. On lap 29, Perez came in for his stop, and he took his 10-second penalty in doing that. So Hamilton on lap 31 was dealing with back markers, and it was a challenging track. We still had wet spots on the track, and he went offline to try and get past, and he just lost control of the car. Now, this wasn't a major loss of control where you spin or anything like that, but he just couldn't get the car stopped going into the corner, and he continued on through the gravel. And he applied the power for a second to see if he could get out of it. Not the best idea ever in gravel. Thankfully, he didn't get bogged down, but he did, however, end up in the barrier and lost his front wing in doing so. And then what seemed like forever, he was trying to engage reverse to get out of the barrier and to get out of the gravel. And slowly but surely, he managed to trundle out. He seemed to emerge far down. So I think he was in like 6th or 7th or something like that. He got around to the pits with his front wing kind of missing. At one stage, it looked like it was slightly wedged underneath the front of the car, and I was worried that we were going to have one of those incidents where the wing suddenly detaches and sends the car flying, but thankfully that didn't happen. Lap 32, we had a big crash, and this was the crash between Bottas and George Russell. And in a way, this crash kind of saved Lewis Hamilton's race, and I'll get onto that. But from looking at the replays, George Russell, for whatever reason or however it worked out, the Williams had a good race car this weekend. They qualified well, and George Russell was pulling a move on Valtteri Bottas. And so as they were going down the start-finish straight, Valtteri was on the left, and George pulled to the right to overtake. And this is the part I'm not sure on. Did Valtteri make a sudden move, or did he just not leave enough space, or something like that? This is, of course, what George Russell claims happened. George put two of his tires, or even one of the tires, onto the grass. It was enough, and it caused him to lose control and come across and collect Bottas. And they both hit several walls in doing so. There was debris all over the track, and actually we had a red flag because of that. George Russell felt particularly aggrieved by this and jumped out of his car, ran over to Bottas to say whatever he needed to say to him, and Bottas gave him the finger. I didn't actually pick up on it when I was looking at it, not until the commentators apologized for the gesture did I realize what that gesture actually was. But that was interesting. And the politics behind all of that, of course. Russell will, of course, be looking to take Bottas's seat in the Mercedes next season, you would assume. So this is turbo fueled. This is a rocket. This one has a lot of pace to go. So we definitely haven't heard the end of this yet. I have to say it looked like it was Russell's fault. It looked like he just, as I said, he got some of his tires onto the grass and lost control and caused the whole accident. And it's really not the thing to do when you essentially are taking out a teammate of yours. And when I say teammate, I mean a fellow Mercedes driver. It didn't look good. And I'm sure this won't reflect very well on Russell. Of course, we already heard that Toto Wolff has kind of dismissed this, and he seems to have put the blame more so on George Russell's shoulders, unfortunately for George Russell. So that's not good for future prospects. Now, why do I say that Bottas saved Hamilton? Well, Hamilton actually came out of his pits and he was a lap down. And by this crash happening, there was a red flag, as I said, and they went into the pits and the race restarted a little later, but they started behind the safety car. And of course, the cars that were a lap down got to come back around and reclaim their lap and everything else. So Hamilton was in 8th place, but he wasn't 8th place and a lap down. He was 8th place in the pecking order of a restart, where you can actually still see the leader. And so this added a little bit of spice to the race, because, of course, Hamilton was now going to have to carve his way through the field before he came upon Max Verstappen and had the opportunity to battle with him. Now, he never did get the opportunity to battle with Max Verstappen, as you would guess, because Verstappen took off as soon as the race restarted. Leclerc was caught sleeping by Norris. Norris overtook him for 2nd place, and Leclerc, he stayed within DRS range for quite a while, but never really looked like he was going to get back at Norris, unfortunately. Lap 34 is when the safety car went through for the, pulled off, and then the rolling start took place. What else happened? Kimi had a spin behind the safety car, but he came back on. As I said, Hamilton restarts in 8th place. And Tsunoda spun off as well, which was not good for him. Norris, yes. Norris, so importantly, Norris was on the soft tires, whereas some of the other racers around him, drivers, I should say, they're all racers after all, some of the other drivers around him were on the medium tires. And so there was already the big question, could he make it to the end of the race on the soft tires? And so if a few cars were on the soft tires, Perez was also on the soft tires, and it looks like Daniel Ricciardo was on soft tires as well. Perez then on lap 38 went off after his left rear touched a damp patch and he had a spin. And then he ran wide again on lap 41. So really not a good afternoon for Perez. And, as much credit as I give him for the first round of the championship and everything that he did there, unfortunately, he just wasn't able to put in a good result this weekend, which it's incredible. He could have had pole position if everything went well for him and if he was able to pull together the lap. He managed to get second place on the grid, so that looked like a really good result. But for the race, he just wasn't at the races this weekend, and he was slipping backwards, which is unfortunate. So still somewhat of an unknown quantity in the Red Bull. Massively impressive to outqualify Max Verstappen. That doesn't happen very often. But once again, in the race, he wasn't in the same race as Max Verstappen, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately a lot because there were a lot of incidents in this race, and you don't really want to see any of the drivers go out. Lap 49, Hamilton closed in on Carlos Sainz, and he overtook him then on lap 50. DRS assisted, but the Mercedes looked far superior to the Ferrari, I would say. And then we had a three-way battle of Hamilton versus Leclerc versus Norris. So this was fourth, third, second. And so Hamilton had DRS on Leclerc, but Leclerc had DRS on Norris. And so Hamilton wasn't able to get the overtake done on Leclerc. And then it wasn't until lap 60, I think, that Hamilton finally overtook Leclerc. And how that actually transpired was that Leclerc lost. He just fell out of the DRS range with Norris, and he left himself open. And along came Hamilton, and that, of course, resulted in a battle between Hamilton and Norris. But also important to note that Yuki Tsunoda had several warnings about track limits, and on lap 56 he finally got a 5-second penalty. He also was shown the black and white flag, so not good from Yuki Tsunoda. That didn't help. A challenging weekend for him, considering what happened as well yesterday with the big crash that he had in qualifying. So DRS enabled Hamilton to get past Norris on lap 60, and that was a really good battle between them both. Obviously, Norris was on the softer tire compound than Hamilton, and that probably was a factor as well. Norris had to try his best not to take the last of the life out of his tires as well. And Hamilton, of course, was driving in a faster car. So there is only so far he could take that battle, but he really showed himself very, very well in that battle. And it looked like there was a very interesting battle happening further down the field as well, where we had 10th, 11th, 12th, within about the space of a second or just over a second, and that was Ocon, Alonso, and Perez, and 12th was Perez. That's how far down he had fallen after his spin. So a bit of a challenging afternoon for him. Hamilton, by the way, when he overtook Norris for second place, was 20 seconds behind Verstappen. So that just didn't work. There was no time left for him to reel him in and have that battle. So there was no on-track battle between Verstappen and Hamilton today, apart from at the very start of the race. And on lap 62, we got what we had all been waiting for. Nikita Mazepin did have a spin. He didn't put it in the wall or anything like that, but he did have a spin. And so his nickname remains supreme. Vettel also went out of the race on lap 62 with a gearbox issue, but he had been having issues from the very, very start of the race. And once again, he was languishing down towards the end of the field for the majority of the race. Not a good weekend once again for Sebastian Vettel. Of course, I saw the rumors as well during the week that Hülkenberg is coming in to take his place. I don't think that's happening. Sebastian Vettel has stock in Aston Martin. He bought shares in the team, so I think he is very much a part of the team, and it will be his decision if he does decide to leave the team for whatever reason. Be that at the end of the season, be that in 3 seasons' time, be that in 7 seasons' time, or be that after the next race. Who knows? But that probably will be his decision, I would say, or else there would need to be some kind of major payoff. So that's how the race ended. You can see on the screen now, here were the top 3. Max Verstappen finished in first place, Lewis Hamilton second, and Lando Norris in third place. Very nice result from Lando Norris, as I said. Now, let me see if I can get the race results, the top 10. So then in fourth place, we had Charles Leclerc. Very good race from him. Carlos Sainz managed to put the pieces together for the end of this race and was not very far behind his teammate in the end. As I said, he found the speed later on in the race, and maybe that was with the drying track. Daniel Ricciardo finished in sixth. Not a hugely impressive result from Daniel Ricciardo by comparison to his teammate, but he still seems to be getting used to that McLaren. And you just know that once Ricciardo gets up to speed with that car, he is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and looking forward to that. Lance Stroll finished in seventh. I haven't mentioned him at all during this debrief of the race, but Lance Stroll had a very good race in general. You know, he had a few battles here and there, but I think considering the struggles Aston Martin are having, seventh place is a very good result for him. So very, very good. Let me see. Pierre Gasly finished in 8th place. I do not know how he managed this. He was originally out on the wet tires. That did not work for him. He was falling back through the field. He had a few spins. He was falling back through the field. And somehow or another, he ends up in 8th place. I think this AlphaTauri. Sorry, yes. I think this AlphaTauri is a very fast car this year. And for various different reasons, we have not seen that speed just yet. We definitely saw it in pre-season testing. We saw it probably in the first race with Tsunoda coming 10th in his very first race for Formula One. But from Gasly, we haven't seen that yet. Gasly is the man that could show us what kind of pace is in that car if he can piece together qualifying and a race together. But this was not the weekend for that. Kimi Räikkönen came in 9th place. Another very good result for Alfa Romeo. So they've definitely made strides over last year. So the Ferrari engine also looks like it's a good bit better than it was last year, as is reflective of 4th and 5th as well from Leclerc and Sainz. Great result from Kimi, taking 2 points there for that. And Esteban Ocon finished in 10th place. And so the battle between Ocon, Alonso, and Perez ended with Ocon taking the remaining solitary point. Fantastic result for Esteban Ocon, and he finished ahead of his teammate. And I think actually he outqualified Alonso yesterday as well. So yeah, a tough reintroduction to Formula One for Fernando Alonso. If we then go and have a look at the rest of the field, so Alonso did finish in 11th place, as you can see, 0.8 of a second behind his teammate. So that one is going to sting, that's for sure. Sergio Perez was a further 0.5 behind Alonso. Bad result for Perez. Tsunoda finished in 13th place. He did have that 5-second penalty that I mentioned for exceeding track limits, but as you can see, he was 6 seconds behind 12th, so that wouldn't have made any difference whatsoever. Giovinazzi 14th by comparison to his teammate in 9th place. Not a great result for him. Sebastian Vettel gets classified in 15th place, even though he did not finish. However, he had a lap in hand over both of the Haas cars, and so Mick Schumacher comes in 16th place, even though he did finish the race. And Nikita Mazepin finishes in 17th. And as you can see, there was quite a gap between Schumacher and Mazepin. I have no idea what was going on back there. They did not show us any of that in the race. I actually didn't have the timing open during the race because there was so much else happening. I didn't want to miss out on any of that. So once again, Haas, clearly the team at the back of the field, and very hard to quantify exactly where Williams are. They had a very good qualifying showing this weekend. Russell was in a strong position as well during the race until he had that collision with Bottas. Of course, Latifi went out very early on in the race. He didn't even get one lap classified, unfortunately. And I keep saying unfortunately a lot, but there was a lot of unfortunate things during this race. And so let me try and wrap it up here. I think looking at the championship standings once again, we have Lewis Hamilton, who's 1 point now ahead of Max Verstappen. As I stated at the very, very beginning, this is because, of course, he had the fastest lap during today's race, and he set that about maybe 4 or 5 laps from the end of the race. I was wondering if Verstappen would try to set a fast lap, but I think with the slightly damp conditions still at certain parts of the track, it was wise not to push that one and to take his points. So a very mature approach from Verstappen. And the Constructors' Championship, we have Mercedes ahead, but not so clearly ahead. We have Red Bull, of course, in second place. And really, I would say that's more so reflective of Verstappen and Hamilton more so than their teammates. Perez, yeah, he was good in the last race, and he was not great today, unfortunately. Mercedes, strong position in third place. Ferrari still keeping touch after 2 races with 34 points. Aston Martin, somehow or another, are in 5th place, all thanks to Lance Stroll. Vettel still trying to get points. And then we have a tight battle after that. AlphaTauri with 6 points. They should really have more points, in my opinion. Alfa Romeo have 2 points. Alpine have 1 single point, thanks to Esteban Ocon today. And Williams and Haas don't have any points yet, although Williams had a gilt-edged opportunity for points today. Let me finish just by talking about the the Bottas and Russell incident one more time. And what it comes down to, it doesn't matter, in my opinion, whose fault it was, whether it was Bottas's fault or whether it was Russell's. It probably was Russell's fault. But the main point that we can't forget here is that, and I bash Bottas a lot, and I'm not going to stop now, but Bottas should not have been back in 8th or 9th place, wherever the hell he was when that incident happened. What is he doing back there? He has a much, much better car. He needs to do better than this. He is not ever going to challenge Lewis Hamilton for a world title unless he gets his act together. I don't think he has it, to be honest. We've seen enough of him over the last few seasons. He doesn't have the mental strength that Nico Rosberg had, in my opinion. And do let me know in the comments if you have a different opinion on this, because I would love to hear your feedback on this. But for me, it's a no. It's a no. Bottas is on thin ice, no pun intended, being a Finn, but he is on thin ice now. And I think this could very well be his last season in Formula One. Well, certainly with the Mercedes team, I don't know what he has lined up for next season. Would he go back to Williams? Probably not. Would he go to Formula E? Yeah, he could go to Formula E, but if he goes to Formula E, whose seat is he taking? Van Dorn? I don't think so. De Vries has to prove himself a little bit, but he has shown himself to be good on occasion, and of course he is a Formula 2 champion, and he's very much one for the future as well. There is always Susie Wolf's team, Venturi. He could go there. That's where Felipe Massa went for a little stint as well. But that's it for now. Bottas must do better. My racer of the weekend, that's a really tough one. It's Norris. Yeah, it has to be Norris. I was very impressed with him during qualifying. It's such a shame that time got wiped, but if you break the rules are the rules, and you need to go with it. And he had a very strong showing today in the race. He almost scooped second place, but you can't hold off Hamilton when he's on a charge. In particular, when your car is slightly inferior to the Merc, but the McLaren car is good this year, or it would appear to be good. Coming up next weekend, we don't have Formula One. We have a 2-week gap to the next race, so 2 weeks I can just about live with. The 3 weeks was a tough one. We have Formula E next weekend, and it's a double header again, Saturday and Sunday in Valencia at this time. Very much looking forward to that. Let's see what the Jaguars have up their sleeve. 1 and 2 in the championship right now, Bird and Evans. And of course, if we can get some fight back from the DS Tech Cheetah, and can Lucas Di Grassi pull something together after the real bad luck that he had last weekend? Who knows? It all remains to be seen. So let's leave it there. Verstappen is your winner, and he is just behind Hamilton, 1 point behind Hamilton in the championship now. So looking forward to the next race very much. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again really, really soon. And if you're watching this after the live broadcast, please leave some comments, and I'll try my best to respond to those, and love hearing your feedback. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will see you again soon.